For question number 4, you guys can see that you have calcium nitrate, which is a compound, and then you're adding it to potassium sulfate, which is another compound. So anytime you're adding together two different compounds, that is always going to be a double replacement reaction. So with these types of reactions, remember that we want to write out the reactants, and then we're going to switch the anions to get two new compounds as the product. So the first thing we want to do is we know that we're going to have a compound plus a compound. So let's go ahead and take a look at writing out the reactants. So the first one we have is calcium and nitrate. So calcium in the second column has a +2 charge. Nitrate is a polyatomic ion. Remember that all of those have set charges. So the reason we know it's a polyatomic is it has that ATE ending. So don't forget to go back and study a list of those polyatomics. I'll put a list of those on Canvas. So when we crisscross, what we're going to have here is we're going to have CaNO3 2. So that's going to be our first compound. The second one is potassium sulfate. So potassium is just K. Sulfate, ATE, is another polyatomic. It's SO4. Potassium has a +1 charge. Sulfate, remember polyatomic, has a set charge. It is -2. So when we go to crisscross these, we're going to have K2, SO4. That's going to be our two original compounds. So when we make the two new compounds, like I said, we'll have a compound plus a compound. When we make our two new ones, we're always going to flip the anions. Now, just like I've been saying with all the other problems, the subscripts don't come with, but remember the polyatomics in this case being the anions, the 3 and the 4 are part of that compound. So nitrate itself is NO3. It's that 2 that's connected to it down here that doesn't come with. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to flip-flop these. So what that means is that we're now going to have a compound of calcium, but that calcium is now going to be connected to sulfate. Calcium has a +2 charge, sulfate is -2, so those charges are going to reduce or cancel. So this compound is just going to be CaSO4. And then the next compound we have, it's going to be made up of potassium, but instead of sulfate, it's now going to be nitrate. Potassium has a +1 charge. Excuse me. Nitrate has a -1 charge. So your new compound here is going to be KNO3. Notice how the 2 that was on nitrate does not get brought over here. The 2 that was on potassium does not get brought over here. These are from the charges originally. So when we go to balance this, if we put a 2 in front of potassium nitrate on the product side, we are now going to have 2 nitrates on the reactant side. You have 2 potassiums on the reactant side. And now this 2 gives you 2 potassiums and 2 nitrates on the product side. You only have 1 sulfate and 1 calcium, 1 sulfate and 1 calcium.